All right, here it is. It's that time again. It's another Wednesday. How you doing, John?
It's Wednesday already. The week has
Right.
flown by.
Man, I don't know about where you're at, but man, we've got some cold weather coming, like
It's
below
not
zero
been
type
too bad
cold.
here. We dodged a. I looked at the bottom of my screen where my little weather thing is, and it told me last week we were getting 15 inches of snow this past weekend. I'm like, oh, so we wound up getting about a quarter inch of snow that never even stuck to anything. And yesterday morning, about 6 o'clock in the morning, it was pretty nice out there. It was probably up in the 40s. I'm like, can't depend on any of that. I'm not
Yeah,
complaining though.
yeah, and I'm not complaining either. All right, so we'll go on through like last week. I forgot to go through and greet everyone, so we'll go on through
You got a
Dan. We
good
got Mr.
house
John
here.
Will. What's that?
You got a good house here.
Yeah, we got a good house. So we got Dan, we got Mr. Wilburn, we got Michael Schmidt, we got Slight Daily Garage, got Rick, got Colleen, and they're falling in fast. We got mostly old parts and Russ, Fab, Mod Racer Pete, Two Hacks Garage, Jackie is in here. We got Buff, and we got Two Hacks again. Awesome, yeah. Hello, everyone, man. We got the regulars in right now. It's
Now,
awesome.
now, Fab Race Mod Repeat. It says Fab Race Mod Repeat, but if you Fab Mod and race and it doesn't blow up, do you repeat then? Can you
You just
switch
keep
up the order?
repeating. You just keep repeating until you have to fab again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So it just repeat, repeat, repeat. Okay, back to beginning. It's like one of
Until
those
the
little,
crank is on
those
the
little
ground.
chains. Yeah, it's one of those little chains, like did it blow up? No. Okay, repeat. Did it blow up? Yes. Okay, fab, now repeat.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, so we actually are they're talking about like -1 degree here on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday, and
Yeah.
like -14 degrees with wind chill. Like that sucks, man. That's
You have me wanting to look at my weather now.
yeah. I
Oh,
don't watch news, I don't watch anything, but man, that and they're talking about on snow for us here like 3 to 5 inches. I think it's Monday until no Sunday night till Monday. They're talking about that kind of that seems to be wow. So
-1 where you are, and that's the middle of the week.
yeah, it was on.
We're going to get down to 10 or 11 degrees.
Yeah,
That would
what?
be really something if we were considerably warmer here than where you are.
Yeah, yeah. So they're well, here's the funny thing is that the app always is updating, and so like hourly it's slightly different. So so right now it's calling for 7 degrees. It's calling for 7, but earlier today it was -1. So
Ooh,
well, yeah, that's doesn't sound like fun.
it's going to be a bad day to be outside either way.
Yes, right. So I'm so glad I got a garage here.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so as far as what I got going on, I really don't have much going on. I literally am waiting for engine block and cylinder heads to come back from the machine shop for Gilbert slanted sled. The decks were slightly warped, 2000s more than I like. So yeah, I got to get them decked, and so it just right now it's just holding pattern. I have all his parts. I've got them all done, ready to go. I just need a block that's been decked and a cylinder head that's been decked. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Remember when, machine shops turned stuff around quick and then the supply chain had our parts taken forever?
right,
And now
right.
here we are.
Yeah. Well, the parts came in, and now there's a big long line because there's been
Exactly.
no one there to do it. So yeah, I remember I used to get a something decked. I would just sit there and wait. Like I'd go get
Right.
a something to eat and come back, and it was done. Not
Yes.
not anymore. Not
It's
anymore.
funny you say it because I never really thought about that. But years back, we did a lot of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I would get a flywheel turn, for example, and go in and say, "Hey, I need this flywheel cut." And he would tell me sometimes the day ahead. He says, "Yeah, bring it about 3 o'clock or something," and
Yeah.
just do it while you wait.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Oh man, what a
Oh,
but
look at
it's
NSB Customs just flexing on us there. Their high is 52 next week. They're freezing.
oh man. Yeah, next week, I think our from Sunday till Sunday, our high is going to be 36 degrees. Yeah, doesn't sound fun.
We'll get through these weeks.
Yeah, it just is what it is. It's one of those things. That's one of the thing I did actually kind of like about moving out here is that for 2 months, basically January and February, it's going to get cold. You're probably going to get some sort of snow of some sort, and you're going to get some sort of freezing rain. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the coldest week of the year statistically is about a month from right now. It's about a week into February. And
Yes.
so we pass that point, then we're cruising.
Yeah. It's all. I'm gonna use the word downhill, but it's all uphill because it gets hotter, right?
That's right.
It's getting warmer. Yeah. So you know what? I was gonna wait until 8 o'clock to talk about this, but we'll just go ahead and talk about it now because I was waiting for a question to come in. But I was there was actually some people that were posing questions about my engine that's in my car. I guess they watched a few of my videos, and they sent me some private messages on here, and I figured why not just go through it because I was very upfront on what was in it when we were going to do the 201050 class. So here's what it is. It literally is now. I never was able to find, and then at the time when I did find it and I could afford it, did I want to put that kind of money into a real block?
Real block meaning
Like an R3
right.
block, like a real block, Siamese bore, something that was designed for racing, not an aftermarket, not a truck block that's got concrete in it, whatnot. But
That block was probably what, $2,800 then?
the 22 in the early 2000s,
Okay.
22, yeah, and then they got up to about 28 and they just kind of hovered there. So yeah, you're right. And they sat there forever. And my goal with my car was really not to, at that time, making 1,000 horsepower was just unheard of. That was early 2000s. If I made 600 horse, I was like way above the curve. And a factory block, the way it was set up, could handle that for a while. It's once you start getting over that 650 mark and that RPM level gets over that 7,500 or 7,200 mark, that's where things kind of get a little dicey. So right now it's a factory block, and it does have hard block in it. When I put the hard block in it, that was a 4-week process. I put the main caps on. I torqued one head on one side. I leveled the block out. I put the hard block in. I vibrated it and hit it with hammers, got all the bubbles out, and I let it sit for 2 weeks. And then I rotated it and did the same thing. So it's an inch from or half an inch from the water port on a small block. And then it's got Mylodon caps on it. As far as the four,
and this is a late 80s 360 block. So it's
that
the
is right.
roller
80,
lifter.
87. Yeah,
Yep.
87 block. And it's got the Mylodon caps that are splayed in it and studs, obviously. It's got a Mylodon fixed idler gear on it up front, which I really enjoy. I like that because it's quiet. And with as much spring pressure and RPM I'm running, I was having problems with timing chains, staying, as far as the timing mark moving around quite a bit. This just made it more stable. The crankshaft is it started life as a scat crank, and then it went through the Crower mobile. We got it. I got it hardened, rehardened. Then we nitrided it. We offset ground it. It is a 4/120 stroke crank right now.
Okay.
And so it's an
What size
undersquare
rod journal did that wind up
2
using?
inch.
2 inch. Okay.
2 inch. And so then the way I did it though is that we redrilled since redrilled the oil holes so that way they line up. Because the thing is, when you start offset and grind cranks, your oil hole doesn't really line up. So it has been redrilled so that way it's lined up and it doesn't have the dip down and then goes over. This is a real straight shot oiling on it, and then we had it nitrided, so it's a really good crank. The rods are a 6/135 rod. They're a heavy rod. It's got the AMS 3.5 rod bolts in it. The rods are complete overkill. They're 2,200 horsepower rods in there, and the rod bolts and the way that the thing's set up, it really could handle more RPM than that block will ever handle. But I wanted to overbuild it on purpose.
So what did the rod length come out to with that unusual stroke?
No, it was a 6. It's a 6.136. It's a big block Chevrolet, length is what it is. So it's a
6.13 still small block Mopar, but you got the small block Chevy Journal.
Yeah. No, it's a 6.1. 35. It's a 6.135. It's a big block Chevrolet length,
Okay.
and a 2-inch journal, and it's a 947 pin height. The
Wow.
pistons are custom CE Carrillo, pistons. They're gas ported, and it's 13.7. I think after it was all said, 13.75 to 1, so just under 14 to 1 compression. And it's a 5 thousandths out of the hole piston. But there's a lot of when I had the pistons made, I did a clay of the chamber, and I sent it off so that way it matches perfectly. And there's still plenty of room in there. The camshaft is a 274 280 6 on a 108 LSA. So not the most ideal for nitrous, but it is what it is. This is what I got. The masters were something that was the very last ones I designed, and funny enough, I designed these just for Mr. Joe Sherman.
Hmm.
Um, Me and him, it was the very last thing. He actually used those masters when he built the very last engine for Steve Sherman, and so that was probably about a year before he passed away when I designed those. So I'm running those masters now. They're extremely fast, they're extremely abrupt. They are not for extended high RPMs. There's a lot of harmonics in them, so you got to put a lot of spring pressure on them. But they're awesome drag racing profiles. So really fast. So at the valve, it's 725, but after lash and so on and so forth, it's just like 700, because it really does, those heads don't really flow much over 700 CFM. The journals are set up at 3000s on the mains, and even on the rods. I put them at 3000s, even on a 2-inch journal, because I want this thing to flow some oil. I'm going to try to keep it cool, because this thing, I hold it at the line at about 5500. I release trans brake, and I'm shifting this thing at about 72 to 73. I go through the traps right at 75 in this thing. So it's it it screams, but I wanted to have a little bit of longevity in it. The heads are 360-1 heads. They were like the very first generation of them. They were hand CNC or hand ported by Indy. Then they went out to Joe Sherman. And Joe Sherman did his thing on them, and then after, there was one other company too that CNC. Oh yeah, I sent them back to Indy. This is all the different years as far as evolution. I sent them back to Indy. They CNC'd them, and then as far as getting them ported out, and then they went over to Total Performance, and we verified as far as the flow on them, and so it's verified. So they flow 340 CFM, which is not that's not at that time it was awesome. Right now it's okay. It is what it is. But here's the thing: is that the air goes turbulent over 720. So I made those masters just for that engine, so that way when I'm maybe a turbulent is the CFM, they get really noisy and loud once you get over that 720 lift. So I just try to keep it right underneath there, and they actually go the other direction. And then once you get over 750, then they start getting air again. We tried all different angles of seat valve jobs and different valves. It just couldn't get over that, so it stayed there. The intake is the Indy intake, obviously, and it was all been hand ported, so it's all match ported. And when we flowed the heads, we flowed it with the intake on it, so it flows a true 340 CFM on the shitty runners, which are the ones that come down and then turn the wrong direction. The outer ones obviously flow a little better, but the ones that come down and it actually goes this way and then turns, to come back in, like say number 3, 4. Those ones are terrible because they got turned two directions. With that, they flow 340 CFM. I've ran this car engine with 1050 Dominators, and I've also done it with the 950. In the 8th mile, it just seemed to run better with the 950, and it was more consistent. The Dominator it just didn't have enough cubic inches to make that Dominator I would say make it work, but I just wasn't turning enough RPM, or I just didn't have enough cubic inches for that.
Or was it limiting the signal on it?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. It's a 3-circuit Dominator. I've tried a 2-circuit Dominator. The 3-circuit worked the best because it's kind of like an intermediate circuit. We could adjust the intermediate fuel on there. which is kind of counterintuitive because typically an intermediate circuit just introduces more fuel. But I think because of the signal, well, poor signal to the booster, I think that's the reason why we are getting a little bit better fuel. So right now I have a quick fuel 950 on it.
Imagine if
And
you had the VRS then.
yes, as soon as something bigger than the 850 comes out, it'll be on it. So that's the heads are they're 208 intake, 165 exhaust, I believe. And then let's see where else did I? Oh, it's got a Steph's oil pan on it, and it's a true rear sump now oil pan. Because I changed out the K member, so the K member doesn't have that crossbar in there. It's a front rack, so it's really a middle and a rear sump. So the oil pickup is literally this long, and it comes right off of the top. So it's really
Yeah.
instantaneous. There's none on that. Because the biggest problem I ever had with that car is it would carry wheelies, and when it would land, I had a center sump on it, the Milodon one, and it would break those things. And I could tell when I would come down, and I put an idiot light on the. You can just one of those like oil accumulators. I put one of those, so when the oil pressure dropped below 20, a light would come on, and then I would just instantly shut off the car if it dropped below 15. So it saved my ass quite a bit. Bore size on it is 4030. No, actually, you know what, John? I'm sorry, it's 4040. I'm sorry, I went to 4040 on it because it was 4030 on this block because it was a used block, and so I had to put 10 thousandths on it just to clean it up. And then the headers are um, Headman Hustlers. They're Headman Hustlers on there, and this is the two-piece ones, so it's like a W5 as far as where it bolts to the head, but then it's got 4 bolts around every tube on it, and they're 2-inch primaries to a 3.5-inch collector on it. And now it's got a crank trigger on it, which is much better because it's super stable. And I had 22 inches off of the collector, but where I was racing at, we had to have mufflers. So it's a Flowmaster, but it's not a Flowmaster chambered. Literally, it's a glass pack. You know what I mean? You can see right through it. And that's basically the engine. I think I've got everything there. Yeah. And
what is you say that's it's a 4.125 stroke?
4125 stroke. So I think it comes up to like 422 cube, I think is what it is. If I did that right.
I was going to do the math real quick because I don't think we ever said what the cubes were.
Yeah. You just I have it all written down, but I'll do the same thing too.
I have 423.
Yeah. So 423. Yeah. So yeah, it's 423 sounds about right. So
you got some VRS question looks like popped in here while you were on it.
Sure. Michael Schmidt. Yeah, let's see what he's got. Shane, do you use flow numbers and some other factors to determine your cams? Absolutely. When working with other guys' engines, how are cams determined with flow numbers? Is it beneficial to pay flow? Okay. Flow numbers are just one of the factors. I also look at how rod to stroke ratio, is it an over square, under square type of engine? Because that makes really a determination on how fast the piston speed's going to be, what kind of RPM it's going to be. But really, on the flow numbers, what I'm doing is I'll get a percentage between the intake and the exhaust. Obviously, there's many other factors. I'm really just skipping the surface here. But that will give me a percentage. So I'll take the intake. And when I say max flow, it's not the max flow at like peak lift because it's only there instantaneously. I will come down, say 50 thousandths, because that's really what the engine's going to see, because you're going to have a lot of deflection and it never really sees max lift. It's really going to be 20 to 30 thousandths at any given time. And then at RPM, you're going to be losing about 10 degrees of camshaft at any given time just because it just deflection. So I'll use, if it's 80%, then I'll usually split it. I think I've said this 100 times on here. I'll usually split it by about, say, 2 or 3 numbers up to 4. Really comes down to exhaust length and a few other things. But And then if it's like say 60 percent between the intake and the exhaust. Now, once again, like I said, I'm just skipping it. There's a lot of other factors involved here, but as far as just what I'm looking at for flow numbers, then I'll split it like say about 10 numbers between the two. And then, you know, it really comes down to what kind of velocity you're getting on the numbers too, like where the numbers are happening. So if you're at like say 200 or 300 and you're getting really good flow, but then it doesn't really have good max up there, there's really no point in really lifting it much because you're getting all that velocity down there. So I wouldn't really, you know, go crazy on the lift, but then I'll just get really fast off seat cams and then just hold it there. So that way I can keep that airflow. And how are other guys determining without flow numbers? Without flow numbers, you've been doing it long enough to where you can kind of get an idea with cubic inches, because the cubic inches will swallow up a lot of camshaft. But then you get to a point where with the head flow, you just can't make enough camshaft. Case in point, slant 6. I'm going to be putting a rather large camshaft in my slant 6 that's going to be in Plan Z, because it doesn't flow any air. So you're making up RPM with camshaft to supplement the airflow. So that's what you're kind of looking at. So that's why, even though they don't have head flow numbers, you can usually get pretty close with just cubic inches, RPM, whose heads they are, and then that's where they'll ask you who touched them. You know, are they CNC ported or are they hand ported, so on and so forth.
No, do you have a factor that you kind of use, or any rules of thumb for what kind of rocker arm, what RPM, when figuring out how far off things like your max lift will be? So, for instance, you probably account differently for deflection on an aluminum rocker versus steel. You probably account different for deflection on an engine that goes to 5,000 RPM versus 8,000 RPM.
Yeah, it really it's going to vary between 10 and 20. It's usually the number, but I don't get really held up on that too much, because it's doing that 6 times a second in some
Right,
instances. So it's,
right.
what's that really? You know, I really thought it was very imperative until I started seeing a lot more Spintron dyno, you know, information on really cam dynamics. I was just like, really, this is a camshaft is just kind of telling what the engine what to do. The engine's going to do what it's going to do. The camshaft just tells it, okay, well, I want you to do it here. Hopefully you do it in that area, and we're just going to kind of go with that.
Well, I
You
was
know,
curious because I see more. Well, first of all, the variation from manufacturer to manufacturer is much farther than anything you're going to get deflection wise.
mm-hmm.
Like if you were to measure 3 different brands of rockers, for example.
Big
2X
difference.
Jeff has an excellent question.
Yeah, and one more thing too is that a lot of manufacturers, the rock arm is not a true 1.5. It's usually 1.52 on for that reason. Where is it farther down?
It's an 822.
822, 722, right? Yep.
Well, yeah, your time, right? That'd be correct.
Sorry. Shane, what cam should I run in my Tesla? What's a good intro? Lithium based pistons. Burn it with fire.
I have a good answer for that. So, if you changing the turn signal cam that cancels the turn signals, it should have that cam in it, right?
Yeah.
A cam in the steering column.
I'm gonna I'm gonna go with this one right here. Cam specs are by your engine build specs only. You don't choose cam, your engine does. See David Vizar's Torque Master program for more. Done, approved, and simply easy to use. Yes, like I was saying, usually by the engine size and the cubic inch, and there's a few other factors that go in that will usually tell you where the cam's going to be and what kind of RPM are going to do. The CFM of the cylinder head just tells you how much camshaft you need. Case in point, I think we were talking about this last week. My the engine that's in the Desert Dart, it's a 370 cubic inch, 6.1 Gen 3 Hemi, but it's got really good heads. It's got 360 CFM style heads, and it's flown over 300 CFM by 350 lift. So I don't need a lot of cam to hit 7,500 RPM. So the camshaft's 229, 235 on a 110 LSA. So that is perfect for that, and it's never gonna fall off. It's gonna build a lot of torque, and because the cylinder head's so well, it's gonna hold that RPM. So to revert back to the question before, is that you can usually go with a smaller camshaft if you got good head flow numbers, because it can carry that RPM longer, and you don't need as much camshaft to carry it out the back door. And that way you can pick up torque sooner and then carry it out. A great camshaft and good engine setup is where you have a lot of numbers between peak torque and peak horsepower.
It's interesting how some of this stuff, because all of it connects together. Like better heads, you don't have to try to run as much cam to
Yeah,
crutch a head that's not as good.
that's
Just
right.
like remember when clutches, all your performance clutches had extremely heavy pressure plates. Felt like
Yeah,
it took two legs to press them in. And now we put in these little ram discs, that just feel completely stock.
right.
And yet they
Exactly.
hold, 5, 6, 7, 800 horsepower, no problem. And there's a lot of things like that in our cars. We're noticing you got to keep up with how the other parts are working in symphony to know
Hmm.
where your other parts are supposed to be.
Yeah. Um, there's a lot of people say the same thing, but it doesn't really matter. Mopar, Chevy, Ford, whatever it is, they're essentially air pumps. Some of them have better heads, getting air in, air out to others, but it really just is as far as what you're trying to do with it, and as far as camshaft. And I always tell people, buy the best cylinder heads you can and build the engine around that. That's basically the best, because that way everything, it's just going to do everything better with good cylinder heads.
I can speak a little bit to the way Vizard teaches this. I've taken his classes. Like he'll say your number one most restrictive place is that throat around the intake valve.
Yeah.
And so you work out 1 inch out each side past that intake valve. And then what can the head do? And then what can
Mhm.
the head flow? And then how many
Mhm.
cubic inches can you run? And when you develop the whole rest of that set of limitations, then you pick a cam. You're not picking the cam, but that's what he means there. All of that other stuff is what picks your cam.
That's right. Exactly. And that's the whole thing. That's why when it's funny you put it like that, because I never really heard it put like that. I've never really watched a lot of his videos. No offense, I just haven't. Just never got around to it. But um, when you do camshafts for a living, you really start to see that kind of stuff. But you start to have a working knowledge of what cylinder heads work, how they work, where they work at, and that's how you're picking camshaft. Literally is on that kind of stuff. Now, obviously, way other factors into it, because that's just doing the engine part. You also got to take into account how that engine's going to be loaded, because that's a big thing too. It's just like, well, I'm just not trying to go for optimum horsepower and torque here. This thing's going to build, I'm going to be loading this thing on a power glide. Is You're going to have a different type of camshaft than you would for something that's got a 3-speed, because the glide's going to be under load for a lot longer in one gear, and then have just basically one shift. So it's going to have a different type of load. And I shouldn't say usually, I always have a different camshaft for that type of stuff. Um, let's see, Bear Rose. I had to add, and what are you doing with it? A daily driver to see the track 2 times a lot, and different than a race car, and that sees the street 2 times a year. A daily driver that sees yes, is a lot different than a race car. See, and that's the whole thing, is what's a race car? You know what I mean?
That's
What's
a
a race
great
car?
question. It's a simple question, but it has a lot of great essay answers.
Yes. What is a race car? And, I got to say, if, you know, right now, if something takes E85, I'm going to say that where I'm living currently in Tennessee, that would be a race car, because there's not E85 everywhere. Now in California, E85 was literally on every single corner. And what's funny is, in California, I had 4 different gas pumps. Now, gas pumps, drive up gas pumps that had over 105 octane leaded fuel at the pump.
That's the Having race gas is hard to find around here.
Exactly. And that's the whole, I have to get gas. It's literally in a can, and BB&T is the only place to get it. Where I was at before, I could get VP 110 at the pump, a quarter mile from my house.
I'm not gonna say it's been closed a long time, but the last gas station I knew that had one of those pumps was the Clipper Mart up the road here, and it was $6.99 a gallon is what it still shows on the old pump that hasn't been used in I don't know how long. So yeah, it's been
Yeah.
closed a while.
Yeah. Jonathan Couchy saying, keep in mind, cylinder head flow sheets are a good estimation at a snapshot inside the engine. Good flowing heads will increase everywhere. Exactly. And if there's one little thing you can take is when you're looking at cylinder head flow numbers, don't just go to the very end. Look at the 3, the 4, and the 500 numbers, because it sees that twice. It sees it on opening and on closing. And the 200 numbers is what's setting up the velocity throughout the whole port. Because remember, this thing's happening so fast that you're trying to get that in there as fast as possible. The cam formula, Michael Schmidt. The cam formula for small block Chevrolet torque monster programs is for all engines. Yeah. Oh, that's that 120 thing, right? Is that what he's talking about?
No,
Yeah.
no. The TorqueMaster program is a piece of software.
Oh, okay. I thought that was the
And you
visor
can
thing.
plug all of your stuff into it. And what's interesting about his program, and I have it on my desktop actually.
Oh,
He has all kinds of actual camshaft part numbers of all different manufacturers.
okay.
And then the range that it puts you on will show you all of those. And then you can keep narrowing it down until you have so many. And then you can kind of look at it and say, well, this one has more or less area and so forth. And it's an interesting way to compare. But you would have to keep it continuously updated. But it's an interesting program. It's worthwhile.
Yeah. Do you have it access right now to it?
I have, but I don't know if I could share my screen. I don't know if it would work.
Even if you don't,
Let's try that. You know what? Maybe we'll try that next week.
I'll say, let's try that, because I'll give you all the program for my engine. I'll give you my 6.1.
It'd be fun.
Put it in there and see what it comes up with.
Yeah, let's plan on doing that. If we're doing that like next week or something, I'm afraid it'll completely just kill my feed if I try to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can do that.
And there was
we'll leave them with a cliffhanger.
Yeah. Kevin's Russ says, does Edelbrock make a VRS carb for E85? No, not right now, currently. Some of the channels, I think that Mr. Wilson kind of mentioned this here. I was just kind of reading through the chats, but yeah, some of the channels are just not big enough for that right now currently, because it was designed for street strip type thing. But like he was saying, when the 950 comes out, no promises. We'll see at that point, what they have in mind. Okay, here. Did you grind journals to Chevy Specs so that you Chevy rods for cost availability, or you just gain offset? No, I literally made the Chevy Specs because they were narrower and they're smaller, and I was trying to cut down on parasitic loss. This engine wasn't designed when I built it to be under nitrous, but I knew it would carry it. It was really designed for the NA class. Most of this was, the reason why I went under square is people always ask me, why'd you go under square? This is an 1/8 mile drag strip, and my car is a little heavier compared to, like, say, Dallas's. My car's got about 500 pounds on Dallas. So I needed to build as much torque as I could. And you're really shifting this thing really fast. And I was trying to keep it under that 7,200, 7,500. I've always said that that's the magic number. I was trying to keep it under that because at the time when I built this, when I first started building this thing, I didn't have a ton of money. I was living in California, and it just was what it was. I wanted to still race, but I wanted something that would survive. And I could, run it on something that was at that time pump gas. And it is 14-1, and the camshaft that I had, the very first one that I designed for it, would run on 110 race gas, VP 110, because it's all about cylinder pressure. And I had a little wider LSA and a few other little tricks, but at that time I was totally happy running in the low 6s, and just so that way I could go out there, start it up, very minimal work on it. It was literally dead nuts reliable type thing. What else? Does VRS? Okay, I did that one. One single pump E85 is the trend. Get my TA heads. Yes. That's funny. The new TA heads from those Indy TA heads, those things are awesome. In fact, the factory blocks nowadays, just some of the factory blocks, those TA heads will actually make more power than the factory blocks can handle now. So, you know, man, if I could do it all over again, and it was 2000 whatever it is again, I think I would have just. There was people who were talking about how awesome that Hemi was. I should have just went Gen 3 Hemi right off the kickoff.
Wasn't as
Whatever.
proven yet.
Yeah, it wasn't proven. Wasn't proven yet. In fact, I was still blowing up engines and throwing them out the bottom at that point still. So, no, I think by the early 2000s, I had figured out how to not how to make 250 shot of nitrous work in a factory engine with just stuff I had laying around.
But your cores were just in the junkyard and cost
Yes,
nothing and totally readily available and everything.
$79.
Yeah, right.
and it was literally a camshaft, intake, headers, carburetor, and open up the springs, and then I would measure the bearings on them. And then at that time, you could really buy you know a tenth under or thou under bearings. So a lot of these things were still really tight. They were like 2 thou, so I could get a thou under bearing, so it'd be 3 thou. And then I would put my old trusty reliable oil pump on there. I've told you this. I've only had one oil pump this whole time. Have I told you? Have I told you this? Yeah, I had one oil pump this whole time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a real Melling, USA made, the real ones, and not a lot of the tops fit on it anymore because they've changed the design when they went to China. Even though they're cast USA, they went to China on some of them, and I just blueprinted each time, and it works beautiful. I don't mess with it. Dakota's how much? Oh, Dakota's. Do you think too much low lift flow can hurt reversion? Someone said that on an online forum. I think the only place I've ever heard that. Too much low lift. Well, how would too much low lift? So that would just mean that it's got a big duration. So if it's got a big duration camshaft, because the only time you're going to have a low lift is at, like, say, your duration at 50 thousandths, because 50 thousandths translates to about 100 thousandths or so, about 100 or 75,000. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense.
No, I wouldn't think so.
No, that doesn't make any sense, because I'm trying to follow that. I'm trying to justify that statement. Do you think too much low lift? Because the only way you have low lift is if you have a lot of duration, even if it's a slow camshaft. Yeah, I think they read something really really awesome, and then they were trying to regurgitate it, and I think they got it wrong.
I kind of want as much low lift as I can get. That's the hard
Yeah.
part to get.
Yeah, and that's where the velocity, especially if you've got a good head, that sets it up, on the beginning, on the end, because on the backside is when the valve's closing. That's where you get all that magic. The intake valve closing is the most important event. That's where you basically have supercharged the air. The air's got all this weight. It's just cramming that cylinder in there. So, and profiles. Okay, what is he saying here? Over 500,000 down pulls, over 4,000 cam pros, etc., etc., etc.
Okay, if he's talking about Vizards, he may be talking about when Vizar worked for Harvey Crane, because they had four dyno mules that ran round the clock, and so they could swap a cam, and they had this thing set up where they had a jig to hold the lifters up.
Yeah,
They could slide one cam out, one cam in, and have everything plumbed up to where it could be running again in 20 minutes.
yeah.
And they could just test cam profiles all day, 4 at a time. And so when you do that, you can get an enormous number of dyno pulls in.
Yeah. Yeah, we do a lot of cam. Most of the stuff now is all about dynamics, because cams hit a point where, especially like the extreme energy, that was back in, say, what, the 1990s. And even Billy, when he was still at Comp, he was telling us that, those things have there's a lot of harmonics in those, because you're just really trying to just get it off the seat and close that thing. And the problem is you had to keep putting heavier and heavier springs on there, and you're breaking things. So the thing is now is that they've gotten profiles that are so smooth that you can really drop the spring pressures considerably. And that's where all this beehive technologies come in, because you don't need as much seat pressure. You can really cut some of that out, and then just have the number over the nose to just change direction of the weight, because there's nothing you can do about that. That's just simple physics. But as far as getting it off the seat and how it's coming back down to the seat, that's incredible on what they're doing now.
That will help a lot of things. So much more lighter, more stable.
Yep.
Smoother at RPM.
I used a lot of that technology on Dallas's camshaft for his I think it was a super stock engine. So that's got a lot of that technology in it when we were doing the spring and getting out set up the springs, and he was giving me weights, and I was taking the valve, and I was running it through different harmonics, and just I was making sure that the frequencies of the spring, the frequencies of the camshaft, because I'm gonna give it all the RPM, like just number 11. You know what
Right.
I mean? So
As I
uh,
recall, that one worked really well without an enormous amount of lift.
yeah, oh yeah, because
It's
it's
not running a lot of lift.
no, because it's really it's the off seat as far as lift and how the cam is working
Right.
for that head flow, and I literally made that profile around that cylinder head flow.
Mhm.
So and when it comes to cams, I know that I don't know at what a PITA. What's a PITA? I'm stupid on acronyms.
It's a pain.
Oh, pain in the ass. I got you. I got you. Is to mess that
I
up.
wanted to see you try to reason that out.
So I'll ask a pro. Thanks again for the info. Press is exactly what I wanted. No, no problem, dude. That's what I'm here for. That's the reason why I'm doing this. Is you can ask. Now, I don't claim to know everything. I know a stupid amount about some certain things, but I don't claim to know everything. I didn't write any books or anything like that. So, um, thanks for the coefficient. I love the channel. Okay. What's Mr. Wilson saying? Kevin's Rust can't go wrong with an ATM if you can't wait. Right, right. Thanks, man. Question, Shane. Okay, here we go. Question for Shane. Brother's running a 318 poly flat tops in a 318 10 below deck and is throwing a 362 barrel cam in it. Would we have enough clearance without valveless to run that 178 and 1.5? Now, I believe you should be okay. Are you running the poly heads, or is this going to be a? Didn't say I'm running a poly flat tops in a 318 because the polys are going to have a different, where they some of those don't have any valve
Yeah,
release
Polly's
in the
a can of
polys.
valve.
Yeah, it's a candy valve. Do you know that when I was at Crower, I did there was a guy who did a poly head on a 360, ported it out, and we made a custom cam just for him to run in Engine Masters. That was really
Hmm.
cool.
Oh wow.
Yeah. On that one, I really don't know, Jonathan. I don't want to say yes or no and have an issue. The 1.7, but the camshafts are very, very slow. If it's a factory cam, I will tell you that right off the bat. And because most of your time you're going to have piston to valve clearance, it's going to be at it's going to be on overlap. It's really not at max lift. It's at 10 degrees before TDC and 10 degrees or 10 to 11 after. So before is going to be the exhaust, and after is going to be the intake as far as how it's working. I'm going to go on a limb and say you shouldn't have any issues at all because the cam on those profiles for stock is like 205 duration at 50. It's a really stupid slow cam, and they made them so that way grandma's coffee didn't spill when it was sitting there idling at a light, in her Sunday dress type thing. So they're really slow and they don't make any noise at all.
I think that 362 barrel cam was something like 428 max lift.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, it doesn't even have a lot of peak lift either.
yeah, I don't have my book sitting here right now, but because I have all those cam numbers, but it's incredibly small. Now
Yeah.
most of Mopars only go advertised duration, and I believe factory on those is like 248, 250 something. So it's really small as far as that's advertised. So it's like 205 if it's 210 duration at 50 on the intake. It's so I don't think you should have any problems at all.
If I had to take a guess at that, I would say it's you won't. Yeah, I'd say you'll have a mile.
Yeah, you got a
You'll,
mile,
you'll probably have
but
like over 100,000 and more on both sides,
or more. Yes, even
or
on my
more. Yeah,
engine,
probably
even
more.
on my engine, I have the ICL intake center line installed on a 106 on that because I wanted. Yeah, there's many reasons why, um, but even on that engine, I've got 120 on the intake and 100 and I think I got 130 on the exhaust as far as drop, piston valve clearance.
Oh,
So yeah,
it's
there's
going to be even more than that because he's running 318 stock valve size.
yeah. So you got
Yeah,
plenty.
he's going to have a mile.
Might not be too performance related, but my 2015 Ram got the Hemi tick. Engine was done, so I traded for the 2019 Ram Eco Diesel. Any advice on that engine? Change the oil. Tip on that. Really just change the oil. Keep it. I would do it. My personal opinion is that even in my Ram 2500, it says 5,000 miles on it. On the diesels, especially because you're going to be running DEF in that, I would 3,000 miles. Buy the best oil you can, 3,000 miles, and then you'll never have to worry about it. Just my opinion.
Clayton's Toolbox. I don't know if you follow just Mopar Joe, but he had an Eco Diesel Ram that year, and I think he might be a good one to ask
Yeah.
questions about what they do over time.
Yeah, I don't know on that one. I bought a brand new Dodge 2500 Ram 2004. I still have it. So I don't think I'm ever going to get rid of it. Patrick saying that my TAs are going on a 4050 Xbox. Okay. 205 intake and 162 exhaust valve. That sounds awesome. Yeah. What stroke are you going with, Patrick? Oh, there 358. Gotcha.
Did he tell you what the cylinder wall thickness was on that thing?
No. What is
I
it?
think it's 0.375.
Wow.
It's got to be the thickest walled block I have ever heard of.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I haven't
I'm
seen
guessing
nearly.
it's a rough bore with that much. Like I know
Yes.
some of those they would finish out to 390 rough bore, and then you
Hmm.
had to hone it up to bore it to whatever you wanted to use. But that just sounds like a crazy amount of wall thickness to me.
Yeah, that's. I would leave it as small as possible. We were like, oh, I'm going to bore that thing out the 4125. Nope. I would
Good.
make it 4-inch bore. Yeah, you could. I'd make it a 4-inch bore and then just RPM the crap out of it because you'll never hurt it. You'll never hurt it, and
Yeah.
then you won't have to have all that big piston stuff.
Look at the stability you get with a bore that thick, and the deck stability you get from a bore that thick, because
Yeah,
it's supporting the deck too.
yeah. It's if you watch my video where I drive the Cookie Monster around and I rev it up a little bit, it's hard to hear it in the video, but if you know what you're listening to, you'll hear it. But how stable the engine goes up and down, it's because of how there's almost the block is so rigid. If you're running, like, say, when I was running 408s before I put concrete in them, you'd rev them up and down and you could almost hear and feel uh, just the rings not sealing anymore. Maybe I'm just stupid like that, but I can literally feel that thing there's a harmonic. It's not, it's not right. But when you have something that's a stable, solid block and you rev it up and down, it is so smooth and stable. You can feel it and hear it. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just, it must be the musician in me. I don't know. Oh, heavens, Mopar. Good. It's good to see you, man. What else we got?
I'm
Michael
looking at.
Schmidt.
I was going to say, Couchy is following up on that cam selection size.
Oh, where did I miss one?
There at 7:45 your time. Look at these specs. The 360 two-barrel cam is significantly larger. Instead of the 373 400 lift, it's 410 410.
Yeah. See,
Yeah, yeah.
Here's the one I'm looking at. The 210 duration at 50. You're going
Yeah.
to be just fine, and it's right there at the 252 number. So yeah, you're going to be totally fine. Have you seen our? Let's see what Kim's saying here. Question for Shane: have you seen our rear end upgrade videos I did on the Chrysler late model suspension Nero? You know what? I really haven't had a chance to watch a lot of videos, and I apologize to everyone on here. I normally try to keep up on everyone's stuff. Yesterday was really the only time I had a little bit of free time. After SEMA and PRI, we do get a little busy because everything that was promised we have to have on the shelf. I'm a little busy right now. So yeah, so unfortunately I have not. This weekend, I can tell you right now, there's going to be snowing out, so I'm going to have a lot of time, so I'm going to watch some videos. So Kim, I promise you I'll keep up. I'll watch it. Now you'll know because I'll remark on it.
I'll check that out.
Yeah. I'm going to go back because there was another one here. Michael Schmidt was asking me a question. Underscore NH, is there any benefit to running 85 in a race situation due to the additional oxygen in the fuel or the nitrous your plant? No. The only benefit I'm getting on the underscore is I was trying to build a little bit more torque. I have a long enough rod, longer than stock, and I was trying to make as many cubic inches as I could within the parameters I had. I would have rather have gone to a bigger bore, but this is just what I had, and sometimes things just work out that way. As far as the E85, now I'm going to get a little controversial here, but on the E85, I've noticed, and this is not just me noticing this. This is kind of a thing that once you get to a certain RPM, what I mean by certain is really high RPM. 85 has a hard time. It burns so slow, and you have to have so much fuel in it. Once you get to a certain RPM, it has a hard time keeping the power up. Like it will make great mid range, it'll make great power on the top end, but then after a while, it just flattens out. That's the only reason why I didn't go with E85 on this build. Because when I'm going to put in the nitrous, I personally never done the 85 nitrous engine. You'd probably be pretty simple and safe, but I've only done them with gasoline, so I'm going to go with what I know. That's the only reason. See, significantly larger. Clayton's toolbox. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, that's a different block.
Yeah, okay. So no, that one is a 40. Oh, so he has a 4050 bore, and it still has 300 thousandths.
No, that's a different block. He has a new old stock X block that's that thick, and it has a rough bore that's slightly smaller than a factory 318. Actually, it's a bit smaller. It looks like it's 53,000 smaller than the 318 rough bore. Wow.
I don't have the guts to cut onto it yet. You know what, man? I used to feel the same way, but after a while, you're just kind of like, you know what? This is what these things are designed to do. I just don't care anymore.
You're not going to die on a pile of stuff like that to say you have it.
Nope. You know, I was doing that, and then I guess what really changed my mind is when I moved from San Diego to here, and I literally just gave away so much awesome stuff because it's so expensive to move it because it goes by weight, and you're like, do I really need this engine block? And then that's when I really was like, I'm done with LAs because I gave away all my LA stuff, and I'm just going to do Gen 3 Hemis because that's what I'm bringing. So that was really the transition point for me is what could I afford to bring to Tennessee and what was going to stay there. That's really what it was. Oh, here. He's saying this right here.
Yeah. That one is the thick one. And
Yeah,
we talk about boring blocks, and Ed's machine shows up in the chat.
Right? It's awesome.
It's like Beetlejuice. We say bore a block 3 times, and
he shows up. Where is Ed's machine at? Where's he located?
Ed's machine is in Northwest Arkansas.
Northwest. Oh, that's like in the other corner of me then.
Yes.
Yeah. Might be worth the drive. Could he cut the block in the head while I wait?
Ed is a talented machinist. Lots of good videos on YouTube of Ed's work, though.
Yeah. No, I've watched it. Yeah, that's why I'm asking. It's just things around here in Memphis. I'm willing to drive outside of Memphis to this area to get something done. When you move to an area, you don't know who to trust. Let's put it that way. I wish it was someone that I knew or a friend of a friend. It's hard to meet people in this area that are in the racing community when you don't have anything that's racing, right now. And you don't want to be that guy that shows up, I've got a 66 Dart at home on jack stands. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm just not going to be that guy. Michael Schmidt, he was saying something. Yes, I agree. Beehive springs are the best unless it's an all-out race engine. And conical springs should be used expensive. I'm using how can I say this the nicest way? I have three. I have a triple spring in my car right now. But once you get into a drag racing application, it's about seat pressure, and and with this profile of camshaft, I'm just looking at massive numbers. My seat over the nose is about 675 right now on the intake, and it's about just it's a little less. No, it's 700 on the intake, 675 on the exhaust. I went a little less. I took some of the shims out on the exhaust side because I'm going to spray nitrous to it. So the seat pressure, instead of being 250, I think I went down to like say 200 on this. So that way it's not opening and it didn't have as much problems opening against spring pressure. And then I also tightened up the lash because it really needed more duration on the exhaust. So I compensated by that by making the lash tighter. So instead of 20 thousandths, I went to like say 15, and then I ran a compression test on it just to see. So I ran it at 1. It was like 230 or 220 something psi, and then after I lashed it, I got it down to like say 210 cranking compression. So that really did help because I'm trying to, I want it to bleed down a little bit. Now you're going to give up some power, but I'm going to save my rock arms essentially because the camshaft's not really designed for the nitrous.
Dakota is asking a good question here. There at 754. Can you use cam specs to help with too big intake ports? So he has some Pontiac heads that just have these massive sewer-sized intake ports. Kind of like how the big block Fords did, the Clevelands. They had intake ports that were just so enormously big. So can you design your cam to help crutch that if the head's kind of lazy from too much intake port size?
Yes, you can. But what I tend to tell people is that no, this is not the right answer for everyone, but I usually run a smaller carburetor at that point. So that way you can keep the velocity high through the carburetor, and then that will keep the air suspended, and then you're going to use the camshaft. But yes, you can. And you don't want to have if you have too big of intake ports, the last thing you want to have is a lot of overlap. That's the last thing you want, because then you're going to be stalling the air. So you're going to have the worst of the worst
right
situation.
Right.
So
that's a great point.
Yeah. So widen that LSA out. Now you're going to have lower cranking compression because of that, but you'll have better, you'll make it out. But when you say too big of ports, here's the thing about that though, is that there's really, too big of ports, if you had 360 cubic inches and you had 400 CFM, that's too big of a port. If you had 360 cubic inches and you have 360 CFM, you can make that work because that's how Gen 3 Hemis work. So it's really hard to say what too big of an intake port is. So that's more like a big block Chevrolets and Gen 2 Hemis, the 426 Hemis have those type of issues. Because they're really, really big ports on those. Big block Chevrolets flow a lot of air.
A good example of that too would be the Cleveland heads. If you
Yes.
look at the ones like Bob Glidden ran in Pro Stock, he's got the bottom part of the ports filled, that dead area around the floor of the intake port. But on Dallas's heads, which are similar in architecture, he doesn't. The difference is Bob Glidden was running about 331 cubic inches, and Dallas is running about 100 more, 427.
Yeah, exactly.
Big difference.
And making probably about the same amount of horsepower.
Probably, yeah.
Making about the same amount of horsepower. Yeah.
Yeah.
If not, he was probably a little making more.
Dust Devil Garage is here. Say hi.
Oh, tell him what's going on, man. Oh yeah, there he is. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Spring pressures. Are those pressures? It seems you are the best candidate for a more modern and lighter spring to reduce harmonics. Those seem like high pressures rather than yes. Here's the thing though. This is a drag engine, so it's literally 9 seconds at full throttle. So yes, you're absolutely right. But in drag racing, you can get away with a lot of more things than you can, like say circle track, than you can top end racing or NASCAR or whatever. So yes, you're right. But when it's drag racing, harmonics do show up in drag racing, but it's not going to really hurt much because it's so fast and it's over with. So, and also too, remember that the spring pressures really come down to the harmonics of the cam and how nice the cam is. And these are not nice profiles. These were designed to basically open the valve as fast as possible, like literally as fast as possible without, and these are for roller only. And it's, I designed these for wheel size, like an 812 wheel. That's how, specific we got down. I think it was an 850 wheel, I think is what it was. Um, I think you had to have a 904 lifter with an 850 wheel for these profiles, because anything beyond that, I mean, you're really kind of getting to the side of the wheel at that point is how fast this thing is. It's not necessarily an inverted profile, but it's pretty damn close. It's like hitting a wall. So Bear Rose Garage is saying, go ahead and grab this one. I'm going to drink a little.
On StreamYard. With the same 429, 464 supports, you can nearly reach in and grab the valve. Actually, if your hand is small enough, you can. My friend Robert ran a set of 429, 464 heads that were ported by Causey back in the day. Exotic for what they were at the time, like 1990 tech. They were factory Dove heads, which is a 1970 casting. And you could pretty much wedge a tennis ball right in there. Those ports were so big. I could reach in there and touch the top of the valve.
Yeah, right.
But that was, I think he was turning about 7,500.
Yeah,
with a 500-inch big block that was over 7,000 RPM. So it takes a lot of RPM to run a port that big.
Yeah. Jonathan Couchy's, gosh, I so badly want to do a Gen 3 Hemi. A high port flow isn't the issue. If you have equal size port cross section to the flow, might not help with low engine speeds. That's the thing, is that the Gen 3 Hemis really make more torque than everything across the board. And they have super high, they make high CFM, but remember, the low numbers has such a high velocity that they're not really giving up anything. A lot of the 6.4s, obviously you have VVT on them, but once you get to a camshaft, you lock out that VVT. I mean, these things are making equal torque and horsepower. So, and the way the heads are, they're symmetrical. So literally every single one is the same. So you're not going to have, like on a small block Chevrolet or Mopar or even big block Chevrolet, you have a couple ports that are different because they're changing directions. But if you had literally on some of those intakes, they'll flow almost, nothing flows exactly the same, but they're a lot closer, and they're not like, say, 20 numbers between ports. They're within 5. So yeah, they're awesome.
Aunt D has a great Gen 3 Hemi question, and then Heavens Mopars has a question right out of 1982.
Okay, right. Hello, Gen 3 question. Looking for an 09X police charger. What would that engine have? Improved cylinder heads. Yes, 09s. Now, 09 is the crossover year, but that would be an Eagle head, and that's going to be a VVT block. That's what you're looking for, is going to be a VVT block, 5.7, and that'll have the Eagle heads. And that's what I have on my 6.1. I sold my 6.1 heads to Mopar Al, and I kept the Eagle heads, and then Frankenstein ported those for me, and I'm running a 6.4 intake on it. And literally that's like the poor man 6.4. At the time I just couldn't find a 6.4, so, and I just didn't want to have the VVT, so that's why I went with the 6.1. All right.
I love this. See, let's just dissect this.
Go ahead.
What will be a good lopey sounding? So that's what we're looking for, right? We're not looking for maximum horsepower. We're not looking for torque. We're not looking for application or not any of that, right? Lopey sounding. So I think, considering that's the goal, and it's got X heads, so in other words, the J head with more valve obstruction.
Yeah,
I'm going to say the 484 lift, 284 duration Mopar purple shaft, because that would just go right in with that. What do you think?
Right in with there. That's funny you say that. I do have, I'm going to pull up my, someone was asking me for some cam recipes here earlier. And I had some of my recipes sitting up here, and I'm got to find them, but I want to make sure I say this right. But the camshaft, let's go back here.
You can tell Scott's our age just the way he asks that.
Yeah,
it's just like, if you didn't graduate high school before like 1995, you wouldn't even ask that question like that. I like it.
Yeah, here is.
I like it.
So this is a decent camshaft that I came up with way back when. And now this is a hydraulic roller, so it'd be slightly different for a hydraulic flat tappet, but numbers are going to apply right and around. 232, 245 duration to 50 on a 108 LSA. That cam thumps. And that cam in a 360 with the Mopar RPM heads. Now, this is a Magnum style head and a Magnum block. It made 471 foot-pounds of torque at 4,650 RPM and 462 horsepower at 6,200 RPM. And that was with a Holley 650 double pumper. It even had 69 jets in the primary, 4.5 power valve, and 75 jets in the back with no power valve with a 1-inch open spacer. And that was all done on a what was my intake? Oh, that was a Performer RPM air gap. They had just come out with the air gap at that point. So that's a great sounding camshaft. So
now Patrick has recommended something with more lift, the 557 or 590, same purple shaft grinds. But here's the thing. When I see the question, I see X heads. It sounds like kind of a stock application. We're not going to be cutting for lift. We're not going to be porting on the heads. So to me, that's kind of why I'm thinking I'm essentially about 2 or 3 sizes down from what Patrick says. But either way, they will both make some good sounds. They'll both make some nice music.
The 509, because remember they did them by lift. Remember you had the 509 and the 484.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So the 509 cam was just seemed to be just a little much for the street. So the 484 cam was like the go-to one for if you're going to be on the street. Yeah,
that's the one you could stab in and go.
Yes, literally stab in, go, do nothing, and it ran awesome.
That's why I said.
Yeah.
Now Ed's machine has an STX21 Racer Brown. Boy, that's an old school for recommendation. I like that.
STX. See, where I was at, I did a lot of Crowder and Schneider cams, and then I got into some of the comp stuff here and there, but I never heard of, I should say, I've heard of Racer Brown, but I've never ran any of their stuff. Never ran any of it.
And Dust Devil's saying a Hughes Whiplash. I think a Hughes Whiplash is not a bad go-to at all.
No, it's a decent cam if you have a stock engine.
Yeah.
And you want to build decent cylinder pressure. They're just, the only thing that we did notice is they're a little lazy on the camshafts. They're just slightly lazy. That's it. Oh, Buick Smith. Oh,
Buick Smith.
Wow.
Howdy.
That is awesome. Look at that picture. He sent me this picture to take a look at Slant Daily Garage, and I loved it. I didn't know who it was, but yes, now this is awesome. He has the TA 284 88H cam Lopi, but it's mostly stock engine, makes no power, but sounds great. It's funny that you say that because I remember designing these. I did every single TA performance camshaft for him, every single one. And I remember telling him, I was like, dude, this thing is not ideal. And he goes, this is the cam I want it. So when they come in, it's going to sound like it's going to rotate the earth. This is for the person who's going to the car show just to make the noise. And up until that point, I didn't even know cams like that existed because I've been racing my whole life. I never knew that you would just wanted it to sound good. That was it.
Right.
Oh, yes. On his 509 cam, he went 1138. I was right there too. I think Carlsbad. I think it was 1150 is what I got on my car. But yeah, on the 509 cam, literally was a stock engine, and I went right down the list and did everything to do to run to 1150s. The only thing I didn't have in the car was the converter, and I think that's what killed it. And that's why I didn't get the better numbers. I just couldn't get it out of the hole.
I have a few mystery cams. I ought to see if Professor P can figure out what they are. I'm gonna stamp 3/4 in the end of them before I.
Right. That's funny. Oh man. Someone wanted me to give an update on why Dallas is not here, and they missed it last week. He's just taking a vacation. That's it. He liked the 2 weeks off, and so he's just taking a little bit more time. So, and Mr. John Wilburn was gracious enough to come in here. So and he's a bringer of the No Name National, so he's perfect for this. So
I
awesome.
appreciate the invite and always happy
Yeah,
to fill in. And I filled in for a little bit for Dallas last year and happy to do it again. I love the
yeah,
Wednesday night crowd. It's a good crowd.
it's a good crowd. Yeah. Yeah. He was saying, "I am Tom, the guy that sent Dallas to Cam to regrind for his engine." Yes, no, I get it now. I had to put two and two together, but yes, no, yeah. I know you as the Ford's bottle cap guy that, that I never got to use. I kept looking at it at my desk, like, man, I'm going to use that thing, but you know what? This is Dallas's stuff, so I promise you I won't do it. But man, did I keep looking at that thing, going, that is the coolest thing ever. Let's see what else. Did I miss anything up top or anything coming down? No.
I don't know. It's fun to get on a different topic like this with some
Yeah.
of these old school grinds. It's not normal Wednesday Tech Talk material, but it is kind of a throwback and it's fun.
Oh yeah, it's really fun. Um, you know, I the camshaft that I was talking about that was in that little build, the 232, 245. I literally stumbled upon that one day. And to no credit of my own, it was I went in there one day and there was a camshaft that Crowder used to come up with. It was all these regrinds, and they would have these garage sales. So I bought a garage sale camshaft. It was ground for someone. It was a little small, and so I went through their book, and you can go 10 degrees more. So this cam literally had 10 degrees less. So I went through it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to put 10 degrees here. So 232, 245. And I tightened it up. No, I left it at 108. Yeah, but I did put on a 106 ICL. So, and then I ran that, and I was like, okay. So I was running that building engines with that camshaft for a long, long time, and then I decided to change it. Like, oh, I know a little bit more now. I'm going to change this. I'm going to change that. It just made less power. So that camshaft was like magic, and it was it was blind dumb luck on how I came across it. So it was yeah. Yeah. I will bring you one. Oh, look at this.
Yeah.
Look at this, dude. That sounds phenomenal. So thank you. Awesome.
Lout Burns is asking about my DeSoto Hemi. I have a 341 DeSoto Hemi.
Oh,
If you hadn't asked, I have sitting right on my desk the ear I need to get welded on that block. And I'm going to get a fellow named Charlie Overfelt over in Roanoke, had Overfelt Welding for over 50 years. He's going to weld that ear on there for me. And then I'm going to get my machine work done on the block. However, my house projects have preempted that. I'm doing an extremely expensive, over budget, overtime remodel on a house. And anyway, I'm in the home stretch of it, but I've got to get that done. And when I get that done, I can do more automotive projects. So
yeah.
that's the deal.
Michael is out of here. Thank you. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Awesome. You know what's funny about this? As I'm going to share a little story real quick. It says use bullet camshafts. You know what's funny is I live in a town called Collierville, out here in Tennessee. The owners of Bullet Cam literally live down the street from us. Isn't that crazy? Like they
Small
literally
world.
it's a small world, yeah. And so yeah, and the son plays in a band. I'm not gonna give up too much information, but he plays in a band, and I'm working on it to where me and him are going to. I'll give away. I don't care. We're gonna make a intro for my because all the music that you hear on my channel, that's all me. Like that was me recording from back in the days and stuff. So we're gonna start recording some new music for my intros and my little montages and stuff. And it's so yeah, we're gonna start doing some of that stuff and have a little bit of fun with it. Okay, move buck. Hey everyone, I finally got 3 short intro videos up to my channel. Take a look later if you want to see some junk I'm working on. Awesome. Yeah. I will put it, I will link it. Is it under, it's a Buick Smith. Here, I'll do it real quick.
I was going to say, Colleen's a mod. She can pop up Buick Smith's link.
Yeah. Come on, mods. Where you at? Come on, Colleen. Yeah, mod. That's your job. I'm not gonna go away. You do that. All right. Dust Devil Garage is saying you going to Indy this year, John. I don't know at this point. A lot of things are just kind of up in the air. I want to get some time on the Cookie Monster, so that way I'm ready to rock and roll when it comes to No Name Nationals. I can't. There's gonna be no excuse.
It is going to depend on how this winter plays out for me. I'd like to do it, but we will see. It's about 50-50 for me right now, literally. And I'm not saying that like I know 1090. I'm just being wish-washy. It literally could go either way right now, but I would like to go. We'll see.
Yeah.
If I'm going, I'll let people know, ahead of time. Because I got to tell you, we had a lot of folks from our YouTube community there at Indy last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll tell you something. I think that John Cope is the mayor of the Indy swap meet.
Oh, that's awesome.
When you're there with Cope, it's like just a huge crowd around him at all times. It's amazing how many people he knows there. So
When is Indy? When is that? When is that show?
I think it's March 1st, 2nd. It's that first weekend of March. And we went last year, I want to say, I think it's a Friday, Saturday split. And I think we went on the first day, the Friday or whatever. But it's a nice full show, and it's all indoors. So even if there's a pile of snow, you're still going to be fine. It's nice in there. It's different.
You know what? Okay, so March 1st and 2nd is the first weekend.
Yeah.
You know what? I might just you know what? I will do my best to make that work. Are you, getting a hotel?
Let's see if we can possibly make it happen. We'll see what happens. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that would mean that would that mean that we could go get the hotel room by Evans? Bob Evans?
Well, it would mean we'd be doing the Friday Night Live from there. That'd be interesting.
Why not?
we might work this out. We'll see.
We did that before, right? We did that.
Yeah, we did.
From a hotel room, yeah.
We did. We sure did. We had Professor P and Dallas and Levi and Brooke and Clint. Yeah. Had a good little crew there.
Yeah. Someone was asking me, what do you play, Shane? I'm a percussionist. I play drums. I do. In a previous life, I used to do that for money. So yeah.
And that makes you a professional. If you've ever been paid, it makes you.
God, I didn't want to say that word.
Technically, in a technical sense.
Technically, and what's nice is that the house that I have now above the garage. When I came to look at this house, because we had like a week to move, to find a house, buy it. I looked in the garage and it was big enough, and I was like, "Oh, the ceiling is only 10 foot. I'll knock out this." And then I was already planning in my head what I'm going to do. And I was like, "Hey, where do these stairs go?" So I go, trooping up the stairs. I walk up, and it's all carpeted. And I open the door, and it literally was like, ah! It was, there was a drum set. It's a soundproof room. It's got a big screen TV, and I'm just like, oh man. So I have my own music room above my garage. So
nice.
But I haven't done anything with it because I've been so busy with projects and stuff, and I haven't set up my full drum set and none of my recording equipment. So I'm going to get there and unpack my radios and all my my records and my turntables and all the fun stuff. I just haven't done any of that. Yeah, I'll get there though.
Buick Smith's got a good question too on up and down draft carbs.
Is this one right here? Is it a 813?
I'm 817 is what I'm seeing.
Oh, 817. My
odd question.
Okay, odd question. Okay, perfect, awesome. Sorry about that. My thing wasn't updating. Odd question: why are down draft and side draft carbs better on old updraft carbs as far as the way they operate? Literally, it's because of gravity.
Yeah,
fuel and air have weight,
right.
And when you're going the wrong direction, it's going to be harder for it to operate. That's literally as simple as it gets. At idle and mid throttles, where you're going to have the biggest issues with an updraft carburetor. Side drafts and down drafts, everything's working in their favor. It just is what it is.
One of the things that we had to do in Vizard's class I took a few years back was calculate the weight of the air in the room we were in.
Oh yeah.
based off the dimensions. And it's fascinating how much that actually weighs.
Yeah, and then you got to compress it too, because remember you got to remember that's just the air, and
Right.
then you have compression, and then
Yeah.
when you start compressing things, what happens to the temperature?
Right.
It goes up, and so then now it's trying to push against it because now as things get hotter, they expand. So you have many different forces going against each other. So it takes even more energy to compress it because now the heat's going up and it's trying to push it apart. So, oh yeah, the chemistry classes. Okay, so Jonathan Scouts, so Shane, question for you. How would the Hughes Whiplash cam with a 3000 stall and 355s run? I'm putting that in a hot rod truck. Also has a 1.6 instead of rockers. Here's the thing is that I personally have never ran them. Now, I do know that there's a person, I'm not going to mention his name, who loves these. He's got a very large channel. I listened to the car. It sounds good. How it drives, I don't know. I think that they were designed to run with stock stall converters. If I remember correctly, I do not know much about them, honestly. I know that they were designed to be put in there, sound big and gnarly. They have a really tight LSA, a super long duration on the exhaust, because that's how you're going to get the sound is just by blowing the flame out. I think that the 3000 stall is probably going to kind of hurt it because I believe they were designed for stock stall, but you can correct me on this one because I don't know much about the
I've
Whiplash
driven
cam.
the said car when it had a manual transmission, and it drives fine.
Okay, with the manual transmission.
Yeah, with the manual
Okay,
transmission.
and you didn't have to get up to 3000 RPM for it to make any pipe. Yeah,
Nah,
so I think
it's
I think
fine.
the three. Yeah, I think the 3000 stall might be a little much. That's just my opinion, though.
I don't think it'll hurt it, but I mean, I
No,
think it's fine.
yeah. Let's see. When I
The
can't.
question is not will something work. The question is how optimized is it? There's a lot of things that'll work depending on how close to optimum you want them to be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like that's I try to read between the lines, but yes, I feel the same way too. It's like anything's going to work. It will convert fuel into exhaust. It will go down the road. How well it's going to do that, that's
Yeah, yeah.
to be seen. So, when I can't see a Buick's missing,
But you're talking about things that work. If you talk about these radically different examples, you can think about how many different models of carburetor and how many different sizes and 2 barrel and 4 barrel and six packs and dual quads you could all put on the same engine and they'll all work,
mm-hmm,
right? The question is what's we're trying to optimize. We're not saying it's not like a binary thing. Yes, it does. No, it doesn't.
mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. My brother is a drummer. He used to name all his cats after his bands of symbols. So like Sabian and all that. Yeah, it's funny. My brand of cymbals I love are Sabians. I run the AAX series. They work well in the studio and they work really well live. They're more of a live type of deal. Um, but yeah, that's funny. That's a good one. I like that. I here. Okay, I'm gonna shift gears real quick. I remember my very first China. You know the China crashes, like you see them, not the ones not the big gong ones, but you see them. They have like a really trashy sound,
Yeah.
and they're like a symbol that's kind of like inverted, right? It looks like it's upside down, but it's really correct. I had this one called a Wuhan. It was like the cheap. I was like, I need. We're making a song, and we had to go into the studio. I had to have one that worked. They were literally like $70. I hit it twice and it cracked. Man, terrible, terrible. Because you look unprepared, but I just I'll never forget that. And then I spent the money. I bought this Turkish symbol, and at the time I had a family member who had a drum place out in Solana Beach, and I can't remember the name. It was a hand forged Turkish symbol, and that thing was the best sounding symbol. And one day we were playing at this place in Mission Beach, and that symbol literally was the one that was taken off of my little rack because you had to set up your rack, have it set up so that way when you change bands, you could take it out. I come out and my China's gone, so it's the only one they took. Bastards. Still never forget that. All right. All right. Sorry for shifting gears, but
No, I love the sidebars like that. It's just interesting stuff that we just never talk about. It's interesting.
yeah, yeah. Um, it would be a shame to name the cat right? That's actually what I was thinking in my head when I was laughing earlier was the pasty symbols. Yeah, that would
Pufftail Campo has what may be the greatest name for a cat ever.
be for real, right? That is awesome.
That is really great.
Oh, speaking of which, okay. So lately, since I've been waiting for parts to come back from the machine shop. I've been cleaning out my garage, just like getting it organized. I'm actually putting stuff like I have a carburetor shelf now. I have this instead of just things being everywhere and off the floor. It's where it's supposed to be. I came across I have an AMC bolt pattern Turbo 400 case. I got
Mhm.
it because I looked at it for a quick second and I was like, oh, that's, Mopar. I was like, where did this come from? Then the second I bought it, I looked at it. I was like, oh, this is AMC. I was going to cut the bell housing off of it. But if there's someone here in this chat that will use it, not just, oh, I want that, and then turn around
Yeah,
and sell it on marketplace, but it's going to use it. And you have to prove that you use it. You pay for shipping, I'll give it to you. How about that? It's just a case. So
that's cool.
yeah, I'd rather have someone use it because all I'm going to do is just cut the bell housing off. And I know it's kind of a rare piece. I know the AMCs ran mostly the Mopar stuff, but this one literally is a 400 AMC. And I thought I found gold. Like, oh my God, I found the
That's
experimental
that's a
transmission.
that's
Yeah.
a nice piece. Yeah. So for
Yeah.
you guys that are running like a 401 or AMC 360 or something, and you want a stout combo like that,
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, you can have it. Like I said, I'm just going to cut it apart and I don't want to be that guy. But if it just sits there, I will cut it. AMC
Bear
bell housing.
Rose's cat is Edelbrock.
What's that? Oh, really? You know what? Barrows Garage, send that to spolito@edelbrock.com. Send me the name of that. I will see if I can get you a t-shirt or something for having a cat's name that's
That's
Edelbrock.
freaking great.
Dude, I'll do it. That would be. And you know what? Don't change it to Holly. Yeah. Jonathan Couch is saying something awesome here that I didn't know. This is something. AMC bell housing is the same as international. Who would know?
Makes sense.
Yeah. Um, But Shane, have you ever played at a bar with a chicken wire fence between the band and the bar? Yes, I have. It was called it was the Redbird.
Double
Yeah.
deuce.
No, it was literally called the Redbird. The Redbird was an old dive bar in Poway, California, and it literally had a dirt lot. And the stage was not much bigger than like this little area I'm in right here, and you could get three people right in front of the stage, and it literally was like a hallway. But it was kind of cool to go there and play. But yeah, it had stuff keeping them from killing you or throwing bottles at you. So yeah, and especially the music we played, they got a little rowdy sometimes. So yeah.
Yeah, Patrick gets it. That's from Roadhouse.
Oh
That's
no,
right.
I knew exactly what it
Oh
was.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
He didn't
yeah.
have Terry Funk protecting him.
Right. Oh man, yeah, no, I got it, but that was true. It's funny that you say that because I remember going in the back door and looking up and going, "Is this like a Roadhouse type of deal?" Like I
Yeah,
made that
right,
joke, right? Because
right. Yeah, yeah.
there's like chain link fence and like barbed wire, like literally not that there was literally freaking barbed wire. You know what I mean? So
Could you imagine I think it was the drummer in that movie was supposed to be blind. So imagine you've got the chicken wire protecting you, and you can't even see what's coming at you. That's
right?
got to
Oh
be
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
wild.
The
Yeah.
lead singer, yeah. He's
Oh yeah,
sitting
the
there.
singer was. Yeah.
Yeah, he's sitting there and playing. Yeah, dude's
Yeah.
blind. Um, and are you still looking for an Equinox? I may have one, but I have to check. I am Mopar Joe hooked me up with this guy. But he's so far away, and he wants to trade parts for it, which are definitely in his favor. But dude, if you have one, that would be awesome. I'm looking for 8 1/4. Like I said, I knew nothing about these rear ends, so I've done some research. I know that they all come now, I believe, with the one I'm looking for is going to have a 5 on 4.5 bolt pattern is what I'm looking for. But yes, I am. That would be awesome. SlantDailyGarage@yahoo.com. Send it over there. And yeah, if anyone's got one, it's going to meet in Indy, I'll pick it up there and drive it home.
So these cultured folks here, they all know who it was. His name was Jeff Healy, and he was blind in real life. Cool.
Oh, yeah.
He was good
Yeah.
in the movie. I just didn't. I just had never actually investigated if he was blind, playing a blind character, but he was good.
See, this is why I love this community because, once again, I don't claim to know everything, but some of you guys do. So
That's
Jonathan
right.
Couch, right? If memory, and this is always the best when it's classified like this. If memory serves me correct, I love that. International story, and and then once you start giving the numbers, the dates, and this and that, look, memory's not serving you correctly. You have it. Just say, yeah, this is the way it is. All right. I'm just messing with you. International started using AMC 360s and the 401s instead of their own 345s, 392 because the production shortages in the late 70s. Well, there you go. So I don't know if it will go up to an international, but it is literally an AMC bolt pattern. Well, I'll make a little short of it so you guys can see it, but it is just a case. That's all it is. It's just a case. He's actually a real musician. He's blind in real life. I'll be hooking it up and paying for shipping. I'll hook you up if you still have it. Just pay for shipping. Oh, okay. Well, where's it coming from? That's a rear end. I would. It's almost worth it just to drive it if it's within 3
Scott,
hours.
when they drop off your roof, say, "Hey, will you take this back on your way now?"
Where's he at?
Spokane, Washington.
Oh my God.
Shipping would look like a telephone number for the shipper.
Right. Exactly. Right.
But I'm hoping Scott will be in Sykeston at the No Name Nationals. Has a very ambitious Dodge Charger project, and
Ooh.
the hashtag is that will be a car again. If that gives you a clue what he's starting with, so
Wow.
depending on when you want it, we're hoping Scott we'll see him in person soon.
And he's registered and everything. Has he hit his 500 yet?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
Oh yeah, 252 days, 2 hours and 28 minutes. Hopefully, we will be seeing Scott anyway.
Do you have a countdown? Or do you have a countdown going, or just do the math
No,
backwards?
it's. I know that it's day 253 is burning away, and I can see that there's 2 hours and 27 minutes left in it. So
Okay, perfect. Well,
yeah.
a lot of people can't do that. That's why I'm asking. I mean, I can, but a lot of people can't count back change. Or
I have worked cube roots and stuff. If I look
okay,
at
good.
it long enough, that kind of thing. I do that kind of stuff when I was a kid, so I'm pretty
Yeah,
good with
yeah.
arithmetic.
It's funny. We're gonna go into my mind here for a second. When I was a kid, and we'd be sitting right next to an address, right, and I would see the numbers. I would try to make one to the highest number I could with that number while we're at that light. So it started at 1. How can I use every single number here and make 1? How do I use and make 2? And it's not just I only can cherry pick a couple numbers. You have to use them all. So you have to be really creative on how you make those. So that's what I did.
Oh yeah.
Let's see, can I grab it? I drove.
Indirect Connections is asking now. Indirect Connections a truck driver, so.
Oh, Shane, yes, I live about 20 miles east of Memphis, in a town called Collierville, Tennessee. And if you're south, it's Collierville. So.
Yeah.
For me, it's Collierville. So, but yes, that's where I live. And I also work at now a lot of truck drivers. Olive Branch is where the Edelbrock headquarters is at, and that's a really industrious area. So it's in Olive Branch, right off of Hacks Cross, right by the airport. If you look at where Molly and Snap-on Tools, they're all right across the street from we're all right across the street from each other. Clint Street Machines, good to see you, man. Man, it's already 8:30, man. It's moving
Clint
quick.
is in the house
Yeah, Clint, what's going on?
with his real life Hot Wheels Subaru Brat.
Dude, right?
The Brat think there couldn't be a better name for that thing.
That thing's awesome. You know why I love his car so much is that my very first car, and we're gonna get back on the time machine because Shane's an old guy. Um, in the 1980s, I wanted so badly to have an RC car. Well, the RC cars were crap back then, but you could buy some that you had put together and build, right? I couldn't afford the Frog, so which one did I get? I got the Subaru Brat because it wasn't necessarily a frog, the Frog, but it had the same type of thing, but it had a truck body on it, and it had some of the lower end stuff on it. It had a smaller, I think they were called 360 motors instead of the 540, but um, so I had this Subaru Brat, car I built. So ever since then, I've always had this like thing. I would see a Subaru Brat, and I would always remember my very first electric car that I built. So when I saw his car, I was just like, dude, Subaru Brat. I was thinking, I think I told him that story too. Oh, yes, right. I remember those 100%.
Clint, when you ordered tires for that thing, did you just go to the absolute bottom of the drop down menu? I mean, is that
Yes,
you can't make them any bigger than that?
he did. He went to the bottom, just said,
Yeah,
okay, I'll make it fit.
I want the size called. I can't believe they make a wheel that'll fit that.
Right. Yes. Um, Danny Boyd said it correct. Awesome street freak. It's exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's
He
the true
says
name for
second from the bottom. In truth,
it.
see.
That's awesome. Oh, that's awesome. Well, we don't see if I got a couple emails here. Let's see if I got. Someone's asking me, could you go back over the cam specs, engine builds? Sure. I know I've talked about these before, but somebody wants me to go over the cam specs and the engine builds for the 360. Basically, my recipe. He wants me to go over the one that has this one, the Magnum heads. So I have two recipes. So this is a 360 engine Quest head. So remember back when you could get the 318 engine Quest heads for the Magnums? They were like a
Right.
factory replacement, and they actually flowed like just ridiculous amount of flow. So that's what these are. So this one here made 461 horsepower at 4,500 RPM, 454 horsepower. Sorry, 461 foot-pounds of torque, 4,500, and 454 horsepower at 6,000 RPM. And this is a 360 Magnum with an Engine Quest heads. The crank is stock, and it's two and a half thousand. So clearance. The pistons at that time were the Icons, the IC 741 dash with the standard, with a 9.5 to 1 compression. At that time was about the max I could go because it was in California. We only had the gas wasn't that great. They're Keithback rings, 1/16, 1/16, 3/16. Now remember these things were made in the early 2000s, so this was a good combination. The part number on that is KB399-standard, if it's a standard one. The rods, at this time, the Eagle SIR I-beam rods were actually cheaper than having your old rods like worked on. Those are the ESP 3123CBs, and then I ran a King bearing, the CR 805 SI 2,500. The heads were basically just engine Quest stock replacement cast iron CH318A heads with a 202 intake and a 1.6 exhaust, and the plug was an NGK FR5 plug. Cam was a hydraulic roller, 232, 245, and a 108. Now, since we're running a hydraulic roller lifter and this has got that little spider cage, you tend to not go over 340 lift on a factory lifter just because you don't want to have it come up out of that little dog bone. So these has a lift at the lobe at 343 on the intake, 341 on the exhaust. On these heads, you could run a Chevrolet rocker arm. So it's a 1.6 rocker arm, and that's a 73640-16. I'm running this is a Crown guide plates 70518-8. It was an Edelbrock Aircraft Performer. 7577 was the part number. The Holly carb is a 650 double pumper 0-4777C. Now this is in California at about 500 foot of air. 69 jets, 4.5 power valve. The rear was 75, no power valve. Spacer is just a 1-inch open hole spacer. Headers are 1 5/8 3-inch collector with an 18-inch extension. Distributor is a stock distributor with light blue MSD springs. All in by 2,500 RPM. 38 total degrees of time to 36 depending on fuel. Oil pump is a stock replacement. That's basically the basic recipe. This is what I would have. And it has all the part numbers on it. And this is good for some made over 461 foot-pounds of torque, some made under, but usually you're within, 5 to 10% of that. Obviously, just no engine's good. Even though they're identical, they'll never make the same power. And 454 horsepower, 6,000. So there you go. Hope that helps. Sorry for the long-winded thing. He just wanted to know every single part. So there you go.
There you go. Real quick, Buick Smith. The AHRA rulebook is now at nonamenationals.com. You can get the PDF for that on the website at the bottom of nonamenationals.com. And then if you have a specific question, you want to send me a picture, john@princetondragway.com. The email is also at that website. I can get it to Deke Denny, our tech inspector.
Okay.
So that goes for any of you guys building anything, especially for the No Name Nationals. But in general, if you have an AHRA tech passing question, I can get it to the inspector himself.
That's awesome. See, that's awesome. See, that's the good stuff.
I have a question for everybody here, and this is just randomly. So a friend of mine has a website. He sells, among other things, the fluid reservoirs for hydraulic clutches, right? And you can't get those things separate at a parts store. And all of you guys who have one know that, because these guys that have all these Camaros and Mustangs with these roached out reservoirs with duct tape holding them together because you can't buy it separate. Well, my friend sells them. Tom'sCables.com. It will direct you over to his site, and he sells them there. Only place, and he's the one who sells them to places like Hawks, Third Gen or stuff. But if you want to buy them from him, he sells them. Well, he has a question, and I told him tonight I might have a little bit of the community marshal to ask this. He needs this part. It is a little plastic clip that's designed to hold a hose in place, like on a firewall or something. And you can see it's got little barbs that the hose snaps into.
Oh yeah.
And it's got a little peg end that like goes in the firewall. And then it's got this end that holds the hose. So if any of you know a good place you could find those, and I suggested like McMaster Car, but since a lot of you guys know tricks like that, if you know of anything like that, let me know.
Huh. That's awesome. And that's what kind of car is that again?
This would go on like a hydraulic clutch reservoir line, like the line that goes down to the master cylinder. And the small end of it snaps into the firewall, and the big end of it holds the line in place. And it's just a hard thing to find.
Yeah. Michael Schmidt's asking the cam question here. What are the noticeable changes in engine performance when going from a 108 versus a 114 lobe separation angle, given all other cam specs are the same? Here's the problem with answering that question, is that when you take, let's just say, the duration at 50 and the duration at 50 on the exhaust, and you just separate them two, you're going to be changing the dynamics of that wildly more than you can imagine, because now you're going to be changing as far as when the valves are opening. So there's a lot of things in play here. But just going by lobe separation angle, you're going to build a lot more cylinder pressure with the 108 versus the 114. So it's going to make it's going to trick it into thinking it's got more compression than it's got. So you're going to make a lot more power sooner. The 114 is going to make it, it's not going to be as brutal off the line. It's going to flatten out the power curve. typically, if you have the numbers to sustain it, like let's say you're in the 250s, 260s duration of 50, the 114 will give you power on the top end. So what I'm getting at is that if you are building an engine where you really don't care about the 5,000 and under numbers, typically I would like to go with the 114 because it will carry the RPM farther. So if you're going to like say 8,500 or whatever, on the 108, it usually takes the power and it tightens up the power. So you're going to have a sooner torque. Typically, not always, but typically, the power will fall off slightly sooner on peak power on a 108, but it's going to give you more mid range. So, really, it comes down to what you're doing with the engine and what you're wanting to do with it. If it's something that you're just running on the top end and don't care, 114. If it's something you're going to drive around and you're looking for mid range and whatnot, 108. I went with the 108 on the Cookie Monster with big numbers because um, I don't have the greatest intake to exhaust number flows. Obviously, underscore engine. I was trying to do something with as far as torque, and I didn't want to RPM it to death, so I was trying to bring that power a lot tighter together. But the biggest noticeable change that most people are going to hear is the noise. The 114 is going to be a lot more subdued, where the 108 is going to be a lot more brutal sounding. That's about the best I can give you with just a glance. What's your take on that one, John?
Well, my take on that too is it depends what kind of head you're running. Uh,
100%.
yeah, because like for instance, a canted valve head, a Hemi head, a twisted wedge, any of that is going to get a lot more benefit from having that wider LSA.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
and so how that changing that spec, the difference will be different in different engines.
Yes,
So
exactly.
like with the synopsis that you just gave would probably be the most accurate in a wedge.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was pertaining it to because I had small block Mopar on my mind. So yes, you're absolutely right. On a Hemi, it would be wildly different. And that's 110 on a Gen 3 Hemis are really tight because it's got a
Exactly.
great flowing
That's
head.
really tight to begin with.
Yeah, and that's actually what I went with on the road race car on the Desert Dart because I'm looking to come out of a corner and having that thing thump as hard as possible.
We're watching this chat go full circle. Kevin's Rust wants to compete at the No Name Nationals, and we're seeing indirect connections saying dreamers want and doers do, but they're all saying he can make it and get his subs. And he can, and he absolutely can. And Kevin, you can meet Professor P, and you can meet all of these folks in the chat.
Yeah, we're all approachable. We're just
Yeah,
regular guys.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just a stupid engineer that happens to do this for you guys on Wednesdays, so that way you guys can have an insight from a person who's in the industry, and I can help you guys out. That's really why I do
Best
this.
version of Tech Talk Live is the one that happens in person in Sykeston.
Agreed.
It's
Because you
this
get
right here in person.
yeah, pretty much for 3 days straight, right?
Well, Lambert's Restaurant. That's
Oh
like that's where this is basically happens.
yeah. Speaking of that, my boy was still talking about releasing that button on Cope's
How
Mr.
cool
Heen.
is that?
Yeah, he was just talking to me about it the other day. So here's a little story, is that we were at Lambert's and they have a little like car show there on the east end of the building. And John Cope comes over and my boy goes over and goes, last year I loved your truck. It won all the races. It was so bitching. And then Cope comes over and goes, hey, do you mind if I give him a ride? And I was like, no. I was like, but you better give him a ride. He goes, oh yeah, I'm gonna give him a ride. So he gets him in there and he's a big, ear to ear grin and gets him in there. He gets him all thinking, goes, okay, this is called the trans brake. And I'm like, oh, he's going to really do it. He takes my kid out to the middle of the street. My kid puts that button. He puts that thing to the floor. And then my son gets to release that button and just hammers down the road and just gives him the best e-ticket ride to this day. He still talks about that. And I remember making a joke to John. I was like, okay, thanks for ruining my kid's life because now he's going to be broke forever.
He will never forget that.
He'll never forget that. And so I thank him for that. Thank you, John. That I say it in a jokingly half-hearted, but I really do thank you for that because he talks about that every single time. Like, when are we going back to No Name Nationals? I want to go see Mr. Haney
After
again. You know,
after we're all gone, he will be telling the story. Hey, when I was a little boy, I got to
right?
let go of the trans brake button in the John Cope's truck.
Yeah. And here's the #1 valve body.
Right. Hey, Clint, yes, that list is started on my channel.
Oh, there's where was that?
Clint was asking if the No Name 500 list has started. Yes, it has started. And Kevin, you can be on it, and this whole community is here to help you. So
I'll tell you what. Here's what I'll do is that every week, anyone who's getting close, I'll just post it up, here. So just to kind of help people out. So who's the
yeah.
#1 on the list right now?
Right now, Dented Dreams Garage, a guy named
Hint.
Michael Hampton. He's getting close.
Okay.
He's getting close.
And Dented Dreams.
Dented Dreams Garage. He's on my. If you go to my main page, I can just go to my main page.
Here, I just subscribed, so there you go. And I'm going to copy this, and here you go. Everybody, you guys all remember that we were here at one point, so there you go.
Yep.
Go check
And
them
I
out.
remember when Professor P was trying to get his 500.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah,
was modding the chat for that. That was fun.
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. So there you go. Dented Dreams Garage, go check him out. And I was just kind of doing a quick little thing through, and he looks like he is a. Can I see the front of one of these cars?
You remember that, Professor P, when you were
Yes,
making
I do.
Yeah, that was mildly awkward but totally hilarious. And I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, that was funny. That was the day. That was the day that when I was there at Uncle Tony's place, where we found out that he was getting ready to stop doing all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's why I'm here right now doing
that's
this.
what launched this.
Yeah, that's what launched this, is because he was just going to go, and then me and Dallas just came up with it. Like, well, if you're going to do it, I was like, we're just going to take it over this time spot. So,
and here we are having a great time with these guys.
Right. Almost, we've been doing this for almost just over a year right now. Yeah. Yeah, it's been
a year and a half.
Yeah, a year and a half. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, 9 minutes. You got anything you want to plug?
Not necessarily. I mean, we've things are rolling really well. We've got our first 4 No Name 500 guys. I'm going to try to make sure that Professor P can get to play around with some Torque Master software this week. Awesome. And we'll do that. And always got things coming. This year I got a lot of things I got to button up. I got that project, the house project remodel to get buttoned up and some things like that, because I want to get back to automotive projects, but I have put everything on pause to get that done.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing it. But the one thing I don't put on pause is working on events and stuff for this community.
Yeah.
We have all the shirts and stickers and everything are now on the No Name Nationals website. The rule book is on the No Name Nationals website. So that's all available to you there.
Awesome. And are we going to start? I think we're going to start doing this. I think we're going to start putting a kitty together for. You had a wanted Mopar Joe stick, poster back there. I think we're going to make another wanted for. We're going to make a target for Dallas. We're going to have 2 targets. Ooh. Dallas is going to have a target because he won.
Uh-oh.
And then who won the bracket this last year?
That would be no. T's Good Time Garage won the bracket.
Okay.
Roland won the burnout competition and the overall.
Okay. So then, So then we'll put a target on. We'll make some more Wanda stickers, and we'll see if we can get a kitty going again. And I'll get with John Cope and see if we can kind of get some money rolling in. Do the same type of thing we did last year. Because that was fun. It was fun. Yeah, everyone was throwing the money there at the end. That was great. I was like,
it was exciting.
Awesome.
Too. I wouldn't be upset if somebody put together a match race again, because that match race with just Mopar Joe and NSB Custom Cars was fantastic.
Oh yeah, well that's
great.
Me and Dallas have that. We have a match race now.
You do.
We have a match race. And I told him the only way it's going to work is if the planets align, and I'm running my Tunnel Ram Gen 3 Hemi and my Cookie Monster. then yes, then we'll do it. There's other things in the works, but if things work out, that's what will go down, and that will be a perfect match race because I won't have the cubes because it's just going to be a 6.4, but I will have the RPM, and I'll make it up with, like I said, compression RPM. So it will be evenish. So, but yes, that's going to be a good one, and we're going to do 2 out of 3, 100%. So, and we might just do them, you know.
Ooh,
Yeah, make it a little more fun.
lots of fun stuff coming. I will say that, you know, to us being able to get to see all of you guys in person to come out, that's the time that we can do it, and it's just great.
Yeah, Patrick. Okay, so it wasn't 150; it was actually 100 because this is what he has $100 bounty on the
I
cookie
have them
monster.
all written down. Actually, I
Oh,
keep them on my phone. Anytime I get let's see here, I have $100 for mostly old parts and rust, and I have $50 for mostly old parts.
oh yes, that's
So
right. So it is
there's
150.
a little bit of bounty stacking up on that. I think wrong ward threw a 50 in on it too.
Perfect. Well, that sounds awesome. So good. Perfect. Well, I love that kind of stuff. So yeah. There was a one up here that said someone says that Dust Devil Garage, I believe, said that he sees a truck build in my future. Yes, I probably see a truck build in my future also. So right here, yeah, I see a truck build in your future, Shane, because of my kid. Um, I'm gonna try to get him into the. I've got enough darts. I'll give him a dart and let him go from there. What kind of dad does that, right? Here's a take a pick, whatever dart you want. Let's, start racing here. That's awesome. I get to be that dad, and he's probably going to be running. I'll have him probably driving Plan Z for a while because that's a perfect car. It's not super
Yeah.
fast, but you'll learn how to control a car, what to do, and it's so much more fun when you have a midish fast car. Oh, that's so much fun. You're looking at the guy and you're like trying to push the car.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Brian wants you to adopt him. Dust Devil Brian.
Yeah, right. Dude, I got a spare room above the garage. Though he's coming around. He's in 3rd grade now, Cassius, and he spent literally 8 hours with me in the garage straight.
Cool.
So yeah, so that's before his attention span wasn't that long. Now it's good.
Well,
So,
but he sees where it culminates. So it's
exactly.
like, yeah.
And I told him, I was like, I said, did you like Mr. Haney? And he goes, well, yeah. And I said, well, that car just didn't magically appear like that. I said, you can't go and see Mr. Haney anywhere. That had to be built. I said, just like these cars I'm building, you see me work on these things for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's because it's my car. I wanted to build it this way. And obviously finances play into a part, but you'll never see another one of these. And you can do the same thing. You can build whatever you want, if you call it for.
This is an interesting one Buick Smith's got here.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. Just trying to get it to click. There we go. I just watched an awesome vid called 4-Stroke Combustion 4K Slow Motion, 33,000 frames per second, and you can see how the spent combustion gets sucked out the cylinder when the piston is only halfway down the bore. Yes, it really puts into perspective the expansion rate of how things are working in there, and how really you think that the bang happens, it goes all the way down to the bottom. No, literally, if you have a 4-inch stroke, man, this is about 2 inches. That's all you're really getting out of that bang. And after that, things are opening, it's going out the exhaust. So yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Per Vizard, the more compression you run, the faster that pressure decays too.
Yes.
So it accelerates the process.
Mm-hmm. Everything just happens because there's only so much energy, and the more compression you have on it, that energy just gets expanded faster, which plays into account. That's the reason why you can run a bigger camshaft to make more powers, because you can have more compression. It happens faster, so when the valves are open, it's not necessarily going right out. So yes, no, that is 100% correct. Well, we're getting down to a few minutes here. I think
Time's flown tonight.
Time has flown. So,
Been a lot of fun.
and once again, like I always say, if there's something we didn't get to or you didn't want to ask, we had a couple questions come in. Slant Daily Garage Yahoo.com. Once again, Slant Daily Garage Yahoo.com. I started checking my spam folder because it looks like some go there. So I apologize if I don't get to you. I'm going to start making that a regular thing. I'm going to start looking. So I just Clay Smatitz. It looks like I guess he sent me a couple emails. It was in my spam, so I apologize. I did fill that email for you and send it out while we were online here. So, anyways, that's really all I got. You got anything else you want to plug besides seeing you over here on Friday night at
We
7
got
on your
it.
channel?
I'm going to be live on Friday. And as the winter progresses, I'm sure we're going to have more guests on like we used to. I didn't do as much of that in the off season, but we've got a lot of guests in the wings that we're trying to get scheduled. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Of course, we're going to be doing updates. We starting our content creator workshops up again. We'll do a few. We'll see how they get attended once the No Name 500 guys start rolling in. And all that good stuff starts again. And the season is on.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. And once again, thanks for tuning in, guys. Like I said, we're doing this for you guys. So thank you for coming by and supporting the channel and everything. And we'll, like I said, we don't know everything, but we certainly try. So all right. Well, you guys have a good week, and we'll, be safe, and we'll see you guys next week. And don't forget, go and see John on his channel at 7 Central on Friday. Go check him out.
That's it. The party will be there. We'll have a great time.
All right. See you later.